It was a rough 2024 for the Atlanta Braves infield, mainly due to injuries. They'll be looking to bounce back in 2025 and show why they are one of the best groups in all of baseball. We'll discuss that on today's episode and also some of the big takeaways from the two games they played on Tuesday, beating the Pirates and the Red Sox. We'll get into all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. Follow us on Instagram at Locked On Braves. Send me a question over there to get answered on our Insta Q&A. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below as it helps out the show a ton and helps others find us here at Locked On Braves, others that are trying to get geared up for the 2025 season. So make sure you do those things. And if you're listening on the audio version, you can help out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode, we are going to preview the infield for the Atlanta Braves going into 2025, a group that is really looking to bounce back. A lot of the Braves team players in general are looking to bounce back from 2024, but this group in particular that was the best in baseball in 2023, took a big step back last year, a lot of it due to injuries, but I think they have a chance to get back to being at least a top 5 infield group in all of baseball. So looking forward to that discussion and a lot to cover because 2 games on Tuesday, a lot in that. We got to see a lot of pitchers that are vying for bullpen spots, some starters as well going, some good stuff from Eli White and Nick Allen who are battling for those bench spots. So a lot to discuss on today's episode of Locked On Braves. But let's start with our infield preview, and I'm going to include the catcher position in this, and we'll start there. So at catcher for the Atlanta Braves is Sean Murphy. I know a lot of people upset after the second half of 2023 for Sean Murphy and 2024 and what William Contreras is doing, but Sean Murphy is the Braves catcher, and I'm excited. I was very excited about Sean Murphy's season going into last year. Then he gets hurt on opening day, and it was pretty much a lost season from there. So I'm hoping this is going to be the season where we see him get back to being the guy that we thought he could be when the Braves traded for him. That doesn't take away the fact that yes, I wish we still had William Contreras, but I still believe Sean Murphy can be a very good catcher, if not one of the best catchers in baseball when you combine his defense where I think his offense can be as well, being a 20 home run type of bat. And then if he stays healthy, which again, I could say that with every player, but if he's able to stay healthy, he's probably going to get the majority of the workload behind the plate and catch 120 games this year, which is what I thought he would be doing when he first came in, but it's pretty much been a timeshare with him, except for that one point at the beginning of 2023, which is the best production we've seen from Sean Murphy. So really hoping that we get that from him in 2025. I'm going to be giving projections for each of these position players, and these are Zips projections on Fangraphs. Zips takes the last 3 years and kind of averages those out. And so it's not going to be the best indicator for some of these guys like Ozzie Albies, we'll talk about in a second. But for Sean Murphy, they have met 106 games. Like I said, if things go as planned and as hoped, I would be surprised if Sean Murphy doesn't catch 120 games this year. But even at 106 games, they have him projected for 17 home runs. I'll absolutely take that. The 236 average isn't great, but that's probably what we should expect from Sean Murphy most years, somewhere between 230, 250, but a good on base because he does walk, and they have him projected for a 326 on base percentage, a 111 WRC plus. So, above average there, not great, certainly not in all-star territory, and 3.4 F4 being carried a good bit by his defense. That 3.4 F4 ranks him 9th best based on these projections going into 2025. So even with the year that he's coming off of, Zips projections has him as a top 10 catcher in 2025. And again, I think the upside is top 5. If he can get the bat back to where it was in 2023 and the defense continues to stay strong behind the plate, I think he's going to be a top 5, 6 catcher in 2025 for the Atlanta Braves. Backing him up is Chadwick Trump and Drake Baldwin, although watch out for Sandy Leon, who's off to a good start in spring training. Chadwick Trump's a great backup catcher. He's filled in nicely before when needed. Drake Baldwin obviously knocking on the door, just waiting for an opportunity, but some good depth there at the catcher position. Moving over to first base, Matt Olson. Again, coming off a little bit of a rough year, although I always laugh whenever we say that because he's 1 home run and 1 RBI away from a 30 and 100 season. last year. But yes, it was a disappointment, certainly when you consider what he did in 2023. But it's been an every other year type of thing for Matt Olson. And hopefully this is that other year where we see him get back to 40 home runs, 100 plus RBIs. You look at the Zips projections for him over 152 games, which if he doesn't play in 160, 162, that means something went wrong. But at over 152 games, they have him with 32 home runs. Again, I'm projecting Matt Olson to eclipse 40 this year. A 252 average, I think, is pretty much right on. Again, I know the average was up in 2023. That's going to be an outlier. Most years, Matt Olson's going to hit 240 to 260. 345 on base, really good. Matt Olson always takes his walks. A 127 WRC plus, really good. 3.2 F4. That would rank him as the fourth best, or that does rank him as the fourth best first baseman, according to Zips projections going into 2025. So they have him ranked as a top 5 first baseman going into the season. Backing him up at first base is Jurickson Profar, who does have some experience at first base, and I got to imagine would slide over there. And then you also have Garrett Cooper as well, who could fill in at first base if it's going to be an extended absence for Matt Olson. So some solid depth there as well. I know if you move Profar there, that does give you a need in the outfield, but I think the Braves have that depth, at least for the moment, especially once Acuna returns. At second base, Ozzie Albies. And Ozzie coming off, again, another injury-filled season, a disappointing season for him overall when he was healthy. The 2025 projections for him don't look great. And reason being is, like I said earlier, they take a 3-year average, and he's been hurt 2 of the last 3 years. And so that's really going to hurt him. They only have him projected for 118 games, 18 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 261 average, 314 on base, 108 WRC plus, 2.4 F4, which would rank him 21st in baseball at second base. One other thing to consider here, because we're really going to get into it at shortstop in a second. When I say 21st ranked second baseman, they are including anybody that might play second base a couple of times. There's not going to be that many people. There probably will be that many people qualify for second base, but the number I'm about to give you for shortstop is a bit ridiculous, but we'll get to that in a second. We all know if Ozzie Albies is healthy, he's good for 25 to 30 home runs. Yes, he's probably only going to hit 260, 270 and get on base, 310 to 320. But he's going to give you that power. I'd love to see more stolen bases, or closer to 20 stolen bases from him. And he's probably going to be a 3 to 4 F4 type of player and a top 10 second baseman. We all know that's the case as long as Ozzie Albies is healthy and plays a full season. Backing him up at second base is Nick Allen and Nacho Alvarez. I think those would be the top 2 backups for him, and Eli White. You got to throw him in the mix as well. I'd maybe put Eli White ahead of Nacho, especially with how Eli White is playing right now in spring training. But I think if something were to happen to Ozzie Albies, Nick Allen would probably be the first name that is called upon, and then Eli White, Nacho Alvarez, probably in that order. But really looking for Ozzie Albies to have a healthy season, get back to that 25, 30 home run potential, batting in the middle part of the order for the Atlanta Braves. At shortstop, Orlando Arcia. Again, know a lot of you begrudgingly are going into the season knowing that Orlando Arcia is going to be your shortstop. I've also had a lot of supporters for Orlando Arcia reminding me that he was an all-star 2 years ago. I would not expect that, but as I said a lot last year and certainly into the offseason, I'm perfectly fine with Orlando Arcia playing above average defense at shortstop and hitting in the 9-hole. Last year, it was just too much was asked of him. But if everybody else is doing their job, Orlando Arcia can certainly provide value to this team, especially at $2 million a year. But I do think he's going to play shortstop for the Braves for the majority of this season. The 2025 Zips projections for him have him at 137 games, 15 home runs. You'll take that. 239 average, only a 288 on base percentage, 82 WRC plus, 1.3 F4, which ranks 85th among shortstops. Again, there won't be 85 qualified shortstops this year, but it just kind of goes 1.3 F4 is going to rank you among the worst shortstops in all of baseball. I need him to be closer to a 90 WRC plus type of guy, maybe hitting a little bit more 240-ish with a 300 on base percentage in those 15 home runs. It's going to be hard to swallow a guy that can only get on base 28% of the time, and it hits that poorly, even with a good defense. But again, if everybody else is healthy and hitting like they're capable of, it's perfectly fine. But backing him up is Nick Allen and Nacho Alvarez. I think those are the next guys up. Cairo, if he were to stick on the team, but I don't think that he does. but I don't know anybody else that really can handle the position defensively outside of Nick Allen and potentially Nacho Alvarez. So I think those are your obvious backups. Moving over to third base for Austin Riley, who, again, last year was a disappointment. Yes, mainly I think because he missed a lot of times. Yes, it was a slow start, but then he got going and was basically Austin Riley from June on last year until he got hit in the hand. 2025 projections for him have him at 140 games, 29 home runs, a 275 average, 343 on base, 131 WRC plus, 4.4 F4, which would rank second, or again, does rank second for ZiPS projections among third basemen going into 2025. So very strong projections there for Riley. I would project him over 30 home runs if he's going to play 145, 150 games. That 343 on base would be outstanding, 275 average. He always hits for a pretty good average. So I think those are solid projections for Austin Riley. Again, I'm very excited. I've taken him in already in a couple of fantasy baseball drafts that I've done. I'm very pumped up for this season for Austin Riley. I think I'll go ahead and say it now. It's my bold prediction. I think he gets top 5 MVP finish this year, does Austin Riley. But this is the position I'm most worried about who's backing him up. Because while Nick Allen is fine at shortstop, I think he can definitely handle that. I don't know that he can handle third. Maybe he can, and certainly in a pinch. But I don't know who else. We haven't seen Eli White at third base yet. I don't know if he'll do that. Really, the only backup that I see that I think is viable, certainly if a Devers or maybe even a Cairo gets on the roster, or you're able to stash them in the minor leagues, maybe they can. But Nacho Alvarez is really the only backup third baseman that I see at the moment. Let me know if I'm just missing something here, but I think Nacho Alvarez is the only legitimate option to back up Austin Riley at third base. So hope he stays healthy this year. Otherwise, the Braves might be looking for a third baseman on the trade market. But that's your Atlanta Braves infield. And you look at it with these projections, 3 of the 5 are projected to be in the top 10 at their position this year. Olson and Riley obviously projected to be in the top 5. And again, with Albies, we know if he's healthy all year, he's going to at least be a top 10 second baseman. So you're looking at 4 out of 5 infielders here that are most likely going to be top 10 at their position this year, with Arcia obviously bringing the group down, but hopefully he has a little bit of a bounce back year. Again, I don't need him to be above average hitter, but I need something. I don't need an automatic out in the lineup, and I need him to continue to play good defense. But let me know what you think about the infield. How do you feel about this group? Do you think they have a chance to be one of the best in baseball, with Olson and Riley being one of the top players at their position, Ozzie getting back up, staying healthy and being a top player at his spot, and Sean Murphy with a bounce back season? What do you think of this infield group? How do you feel about it going into 2025? Let me know in the comments section down below. All right, next we'll get into the takeaways from the 2 games that the Braves played on Tuesday. A lot to cover in these games, especially on the pitching side of things. And there were some highlights offensively as well and defensively. We'll get into all of that here next. Thanks as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Check out Locked On MLB for your second listen. We're solely getting you caught up with everything happening all around spring training. Don't know how he does it. I can barely focus on one team as it is, but make sure you subscribe there on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Obviously, we're back 5 days a week here on Locked On Braves, so make sure you're subscribed. Got a lot of content coming your way. This week we'll be doing our position previews, looking at the outfield, starting pitching, all of that here the rest of the week, with our mailbag episode coming your way on Friday. So get your questions ready for that. We only had about 12 submitted last week. You're finally running out of questions. It took all off season, but get ready for that the rest of the week. All right, the Braves played 2 games and got 2 wins on Tuesday. I know wins don't mean much in spring training, but I still would rather win than lose the games. They beat the Pirates 2-1 and the Red Sox 6-1. Pitching was outstanding in both of these games. Now, only the Red Sox one was on TV, so I'm going to have more takeaways from that. But in the Pirates game, we did have StatCast data, and so that can tell you a good bit as well. But the pitching, fantastic. I know in the game I watched against the Red Sox, just about everybody threw the ball well in that. I think everybody did throw the ball well in that one. And in the other game, everybody except Enoli Paredes threw the ball really good in that one too. For the Pirates game, Eli White led off for the Braves and went 3 for 3 with a run scored, but he did get caught stealing, and that just can't happen. He's there for his speed, but he is off to a fantastic start. Look, I thought he was the favorite to win that final bench spot over Luke Williams coming into the spring training. I think through 4 games. He certainly has shown that, but a long way to go. But I like Eli White's chances, especially the play I saw him make at second base the other day was just outstanding, and he's getting it done at the plate early on. Nacho Alvarez played third base again. Just told you I was going to note that. It is early, but again, I think part of that is they really don't have a solution if something happens to Austin Riley. So why not go ahead and get Nacho moved there? As I've also said, maybe they are just finally making that transition to him as a third baseman. We'll see if he gets any reps at shortstop this spring training. I think Mass Boost made a good comment in the comment section on yesterday's podcast that perhaps they're just wanting to see some other guys get some reps at shortstop early on because they know Nacho is going to be there throughout so that they can put him at shortstop later in spring training. But I don't know. Again, that's something I want to see play out. Are they just completely moving him to third base at this point? They know what they have with him at shortstop, and they just want to start transitioning him to third, whether to be a backup or maybe to help his trade potential. I don't know. Brian De La Cruz had an RBI single in this one. Again, kind of trying to prove his worth that he deserves looks, especially early in the season with Acuna out. Ambioris Tavares got some action at shortstop. I wish I could have seen that. That was a game that unfortunately was not on TV. He did get a hit on a weak grounder to third and then stole second. He hit a grounder at 103.8 miles per hour and hit into a double play on that one. So that's baseball. He also threw a runner out at home plate. I wish I could have seen that. I really like Ambioris Tavares just because of what he can do defensively. I just need the guy to not strike out so much. But good to see him getting some reps here early in spring training. Hopefully we get some action of him on TV here soon. Drake Baldwin came on in relief of Kurt Casale and got just one at bat. I found that quite odd. I think that would have been the other way around, especially in a split squad game like that. It's an opportunity to get 3 at bats from Drake Baldwin, but they started Casale, giving the veteran the reps over the big time prospect. So I just thought that was interesting to note. Luke Williams over 3 with 3 strikeouts. Like I said, I viewed Eli White as the favorite over him for that last bench spot. It's very early in spring training, and even with that, results don't generally tend to mean too much. But if you're just looking at head-to-head comparison so far as what's happened, Eli White certainly has the edge over Luke Williams. Spencer Schwellenbach started in that game against the Pirates. 2 innings, 1 hit, no walks, no earned, 2 strikeouts. Hit 97 with the fastball a few times. Threw 6 different pitches in this one. So good start there for Schwellenbach. Waldrop pitched a scoreless inning with no strikeouts and a walk. Got a double play to end the inning. Gave up 2 groundouts. Fastball topped out at 98. Says he only threw the 4-seam slider and split through 16 pitches in total. So we didn't see that curveball that we've heard about. And now he has been demoted already out of big league camp. But Waldrop does throw a scoreless inning there. Jordan Williams threw a scoreless inning with a walk and a strikeout. Fastball topped out at 97. Gave up some hard contact. It was after a rough outing in his first one. So don't know that was much better, but again, couldn't really see it. Roldy Munoz touched 99 with his sinker in a 10-pitch scoreless inning. Domingo Gonzalez gave up a walk and a hit, but got bailed out. As I mentioned earlier, Tavares cut down a runner at home plate to end the inning. He also gave up some hard contact. So not really a good outing for Gonzalez in this one either. But again, just looking at the stats on that one, didn't get to watch that game. As for the game that I did watch against the Red Sox, the regulars looked really good in this one. Ozuna hit a homer. Olson, Riley, and Michael Harris each had hits in this one, so that was good to see. Ronaldo Lopez looked sharp in his 2 scoreless innings, gave up a hit and a walk with no earned runs and 2 strikeouts. Saw plenty of 95s from Lopez in this one, so certainly feel pretty good about that. Pierce Johnson. Darren O'Day talked about him trying to add in the cutter a little bit more, a pitch that he did throw last year. The curveball wasn't quite as effective for him last year. It went from a 40.2% whiff rate in 2023 to just 28.1% last year. That could be due to the fact that he threw it 15% more last year. So just more quantity leads to fewer whiffs. But I've even said, I thought, especially in the second half last year, maybe hitters were starting to catch up to that curveball a little bit. So I would love to see it if he could introduce something else in there. It looks like that cutter might be the pitch that he's going to, although I don't know that we saw it in this one. While we did get video of this game, we didn't get StatCast data, so it's kind of hard to see what the pitch mix was for these pitchers. But I think that would be a good thing for Pierce Johnson if he's able to throw the fastball a little bit more too. I mean, he throws a hard fastball. So I'd like to see him kind of throw the fastball a little bit more, throw that cutter, and hopefully get hitters off that curveball. That looks like maybe they started to adjust to him in the second half last year. But just having a third pitch that maybe he can throw 10 to 15% of the time, throw that fastball a little bit more at the top of the zone and play that curveball off of it. And I think Pierce Johnson can get back to being a really good setup guy. Not that he wasn't good last year. It just, from what I remember in the second half of last season, I wasn't nearly as confident in Pierce Johnson. We got to see our debut for Buck Farmer. He threw a scoreless inning, no hits, no walks, no earned, and 1 strikeout, got a ground out and a fly out. Perdomo was sitting 93 in this one, which was an uptick from where he was the other day in his first spring training outing where he was 90-91. So that's progress and good to see. He was averaging 94 in 2023 before the injury. So he's almost back to that pre-injury velocity. Some very uncomfortable swings against Perdomo. He struck out Trevor Story on a back foot slider that was just ridiculous on a 3-2 count, and some other awkward swings against him. He faced 2 lefties in Jarren Duran and Tristan Casas. He got a weak pop-up from Duran and a weak ground ball from Tristan Casas. So an impressive outing from Perdomo, who again, I think is very likely to get one of the bullpen spots. Jake Diekman pitched in this one as well. He also got to face Duran and Casas. I don't know if it was intentional from Brian Snitker or not, but he got some of his lefties in against their best lefties, although Diekman is somebody that in his career, the splits are about the same left to right. Duran did shoot a single the other way on a 3-2 pitch, but he did get Casas out in that one. I thought Diekman looked pretty good. Pilar, the Rule 5 pick that they got, he fell behind the first batter he faced 3-0. And then groomed him a fastball that he ripped into the right center field gap for a triple. Then he settled down after that, struck out the next 2 batters, but had to throw a lot of pitch. I think it was the 3rd batter he faced, fouled off some tough pitches. It was a long at bat. And you could tell that he was tired by the time he got to that 4th batter, which was Roman Anthony, one of the top prospects for the Red Sox. They threw out 3 of their top prospects in this game, and Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, and Marcelo Meyer back-to-back in the order. And Roman Anthony shot a 3-1 pitch the other way for an RBI hit. And then that was it for PR. Like I said, just threw a lot of pitches in this one, but I actually liked what I saw. And this was one of those indications where you just can't always take stats, spring training stats, or stats in general. This would be for regular season games too. You can't just look at the stats and say, oh, this guy was terrible, this guy was bad. I thought he threw the ball pretty well, especially considering he had to face 3 straight lefties in this game too as a right-handed pitcher. So I thought he threw the ball really good. He was able to place that slider and that cutter, backdoor it to lefties, which is really important when you are having to face lefties like that. He froze up a lefty hitter, backdooring that slider. So I was impressed with what I saw from Pilar despite the poor results. Both of those, again, were situations where he just fell behind in the count. One, maybe just a little rusty coming into the game. The second one, he was clearly tired because he had really good command in the middle of his outing, but kind of just lost it in that last batter that he faced. De Los Santos threw 95, got a nice swing and miss from Marcelo Meyer on a good changeup. I was really impressed with the stuff from Covey as well, Dylan Covey. He had fastball up at 95, looked like he mixed in a curveball, slider, and changeup as well. And then Sandy Leon hit his 2nd homer of the spring. Like I said earlier, watch out Chadwick Trump, although that is not serious. Trump is out of options, and Leon is on a minor league deal, so and Trump got a hit in his first game. Not that we are really even looking too much into spring training results so far, but just kind of funny. Sandy Leon has the 2 home runs already in spring training. And we did want to mention Sean Newcomb started the game for the Red Sox for the Braves. 2 innings, 1 hit, no earned, no walks, and 3 strikeouts for Sean Newcomb. You know, he's a guy that I honestly didn't know he was still pitching, but glad that he is, rooting for him. Always hate that Sean really couldn't put it together with the Braves. But of course he comes back and faces his former team and kind of mows them down in spring training. And then my last takeaway from this, and really this game and what I've seen already in some of the other games that I've watched, or the other game that I've watched, I really like Nick Allen. I'm not saying he's going to take over for Arcia at shortstop or anything, but the defensive actions look smooth. I talked about the play he made in the hole the other day that looked really smooth. Nice over-the-shoulder catch in this one, or maybe that play I'm thinking about in the hole was a play that he made today to end an inning. He already has a pair of hits in spring training. Again, I'm not saying he's going to overtake Arcia for the shortstop job, but again, he was my favorite to be that bench spot over a Christian Cairo as that infield backup for the Atlanta Braves. And early on, he's been impressive to me. So those are some of my takeaways from the games on Tuesday, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. All right, next we'll get to some of the news of the day, including Spencer Strider update and some cuts that the Braves are already made in spring training. We'll get to those here next. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in a bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. And if you want to go ahead and look ahead to the Major League Baseball season, they have odds out there for spring training games if you are bold enough to get into that. But they have World Series odds as well. The Dodgers plus 240 to win the World Series, followed by the Yankees at plus 700 and the Braves at plus 900 with the third best odds. They have league winners, division winners, awards winners, win totals, all of that you can see at FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/play safe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way that you play. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Let's wrap things up here with a little bit of news. Spencer Strider threw another bullpen session on Tuesday as he continues to get ramped up. We're waiting for that next step for him to face hitters in a live batting practice session. We have not seen that yet, but good to see him continue to get ramped up. Did not see any reports of velocity or anything like that. Don't even know if he's ramped it up to that full capacity yet, but just good to see him continuing to make that progress. And then the Braves did option Dylan Dodd and Hurston Waldrop after the 2 games today. Not surprising, maybe a little surprising that it's this early in spring training that the Braves are already making some moves and some cuts from big league camp. I do think it's a little telling with Hurston Waldrop in terms of where he is on the depth chart right now. And I've talked about this already. I think after Ian Anderson and Grant Holmes, AJ Smith-Shawver is next up, followed by Bryce Elder. And then I don't even know if Hurston Waldrop is next up after that. So I think he has fallen down quite a bit, which is unfortunate, but I think just kind of warranted with where he is. You did not see him make the strides last year that we needed to see him make. Now, could we still see him in spring training games? Yes, certainly. But again, I think this is the fact that he's already been optioned is just a little bit telling of where he is in the pecking order for Braves starting pitching going into 2025. They also re-signed Enoli Paredes and Royber Salinas to minor league camps. I guess they reassigned, not re-signed. They reassigned those two to minor league camps. So the Braves already making some cuts in spring training. And then Kyle Finnegan signs a 1-year, $6 million deal to go back with the Nats. So they don't tender him a contract and then end up signing him back anyway. So he is back with the Nationals. Look for him to get traded at some point this season. But that's the news for today. I see a lot of people talking about Maddox, Glavine, and Smolson here, saying we loved when we had them. I got a lot of heat for on Friday's podcast saying that I would take Greg Maddux if I could only take one of the big, I got asked last Friday in our mailbag podcast, which of the big 3 that I would take for this Braves team. And I took John Smoltz, and a lot of people took offense to that in the comments section. Let me be very clear. Greg Maddux is one of the best pitchers of all time. There is no mistaking that. But there's also no mistaking John Smoltz's numbers in the postseason, where he is one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. And I do think that in the playoffs, Smoltz stuff generally plays up. That doesn't mean that Greg Maddux is bad in the postseason. His postseason resume isn't bad either. But if you're not familiar with John Smoltz's postseason resume, go check that out, because he is one of the best postseason pitchers of all time and is a big game pitcher, as Matt Carter said. So I meant no disrespect to Greg Maddux. My whole point in that was just that I'm taking the guy that's going to help me win in the postseason, because I think that's what this Braves team needs the most. I think they have enough arms and enough talent to get through the regular season, but for this team, it's all about how do you get through the postseason. And that's why Smoltz, I think, makes the most sense of the big 3, just because of his postseason resume. So wanted to clear that up a little bit, because we had a lot of comments about that. Looking at those here live real quick, we got David Agnesia, Matt Carter, Brad Newsom as well, Little E in here with the all caps. That's not necessary, but thanks for being here. Jeffrey Humphreys, Alav S., thank you all for joining today. I really do appreciate it. Matt Carter said, what are what are your Arcia's biggest fan? He's a backup, and that's it. I'm not a fan of Arcia necessarily, and I don't know if you were talking to me or somebody else in the live chat here, but I just think he's fine for what he is. He's going to bat ninth. He's going to play above average defense. The rest of the lineup is really what should be generating the offense. I would love to have an upgrade at shortstop, certainly, but it just is what it is. And again, there's nobody in the system that they have that's going to overtake him. They have nobody ready to supplant him. Again, I don't think it's going to be Nick Allen, even though I do like what I've seen so far. But you're just going to have to live with Orlando Arcia until the Braves make a trade or sign somebody else. And I think he is fine. I think he is perfectly fine for $2 million a year, batting ninth and playing above average defense. This Braves team can still win with that. They've won the last several years with that. So again, I don't love it. If I could wave a magic wand and upgrade at shortstop, I would. But I think for how the rest of this team is designed, you shouldn't have to worry about Orlando Arcia offensively as long as he continues to play above average defense. All right, thank you so much for joining today. Doug Counson here as well. Appreciate you joining. Isaac Brown, I really appreciate it. I think you're also with me on the Smoltz bandwagon as well because of the playoff resume. So thank you for backing me up there. All right, that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Make sure that you follow us on social media at shortstopball, at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure that you subscribe on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below. Thanks as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen, and make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.